but rather I'm talking about the discipline of biochemistry. And for those of you who don't know what biochemistry entails, it's the area of science where the goal is to understand life at a molecular level, at its most basic foundational level. Biochemists are all about identifying the molecules that make up living systems. How are these molecules structured? How do they react with each other? And how does that structure and function activity relate to higher order biological processes that are necessary for life? Again, biochemistry is about understanding life at its most basic fundamental level. And I can't think of a more exciting area in science than biochemistry. And I also can't think of a more exciting area when it comes to scientific apologetics, that is, using science as a way to defend the Christian faith, than biochemistry. In fact, biochemistry paved the way for my conversion to Christianity. I was an agnostic when I entered college. I didn't know if God existed or not, and I really didn't care. Now, if you ask me, did I think God existed, I very well could have said yes. I grew up in the Bible Belt in West Virginia, and it was fashionable at that time to acknowledge or to give a nod to the possibility of God's existence. But in my heart of hearts, I didn't really know, and I didn't really care. What I was focused on as a college student was preparing myself to go to graduate school to become a biochemist. I was a nerd, I admit it. So I took courses in chemistry and in biology and in physics. And in my biology courses, the professors that I deeply admired and admire to this day taught that life's origin and life's history could be explained through evolutionary means. And I accepted those ideas. In fact, those ideas fueled my agnosticism. Because if evolution can explain the origin and the history of life, then you don't need God. Why is God necessary? Why is the Creator necessary? In fact, just about a week or so ago, I did a debate with atheist P.Z. Myers on Darwin Day at North Dakota State University. Yes, it was very cold, outside at least, and it was hot in the auditorium. But one of P.Z. Myers' points, and I hear this from atheists who are in the sciences, that again, if evolution can explain life's origin and life's history, why is a creator necessary? I encounter so many people who've gone through biology classes where that message is communicated, and they, again, reach that same conclusion, that if evolution can explain everything, why do you need a creator? Have you ever encountered somebody like that? What do you say to them? How do you address that concern? That's what we're going to be talking about in this session. Now, for me, it was biochemistry that dislodged me from my agnosticism. Because when I went to graduate school, I now was studying biochemistry at the cutting edge. I was immersed in biochemistry on a day-in, day-out basis. I was taking advanced courses. I was beginning to do my own research. I was reading the scientific literature. I was interacting with students and professors. And I very quickly came to the recognition that biochemical systems are complex. But it wasn't the complexity that impressed me. It was the elegance of these systems. It was the ingenuity of these systems, the sophistication, the beauty. Yes, there's beauty in science, as there is in art, in literature. And I asked myself, how do scientists explain where these systems come from? I didn't want a hand-waving explanation, evolution did it. I wanted to know the details. And I began to study this question. How do we explain the origin of biochemical systems? This is called the origin of life problem. And I quickly came to the conviction that chemistry and physics alone could not generate the types of systems that you see in the cell. There has to be a mind that undergirds life, that brought life into existence. It was at that point I came to the recognition there had to be a creator. And once I became convinced that a creator existed, I was now open to the gospel. When I was an undergraduate student, I had friends who were Christians, and they would share their faith with me. And I would think to myself, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. I liked these people. They were my friends. I felt sorry for them. But then when I came to the recognition a creator existed, those crazy ideas that they were telling me about suddenly became ideas that I apprehended, and I responded to the truth of the gospel. And the exciting thing, for me at least, maybe not for you, but for me the exciting thing is the very lines of reasoning that led me to conclude a creator must exist almost 30 years ago now. I know I look much younger than that. But those same lines of evidence are the same types of evidence we can marshal today to make a case for a creator's existence, at least from biochemistry. And to summarize these lines of reasoning, just think of the 3 F's. F's aren't a good thing in school, but they're a great thing this morning. And those 3 F's are fingerprint, failure, and fashion. That when we look at biochemical systems, we see powerful evidence for God's fingerprints in these systems. Any attempt to try to generate and explain the origin of life and the origin of biochemical systems through evolution leads to failure, and attempts to create life in the laboratory or to fashion life demonstrates unequivocally the role intelligent agency must play in bringing about life. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first argument. God's fingerprints are evident in the record of nature. One of the things that I find really provocative as a biochemist is this, that the defining features of biochemical systems are identical to those features that we would recognize as evidence for the work of a human designer. Let me say it another way. When human beings design, when we create, when we invent systems and devices and objects, those things we produce have certain properties that reflect the work of a mind. And when we look at biochemical systems, they have those same properties as well. These are the defining properties of biochemical systems. So by analogy, if these features reflect the work of a human mind and we see the same features in the cell, is this not evidence for the work of a divine mind? Let me illustrate this by talking about the information systems in the cell. Now, our common experience is information comes from a mind. If you drive through the Hollywood Hills and you see the big Hollywood sign, what do you conclude about where that sign came from? It came from a mind, did it not? And this is true no matter where we encounter information. It always, in our experience, comes from a mind. And it's provocative in light of that to note that at their very essence, biochemical systems are information systems. The 2 most prominent classes of biomolecules that are information-harboring molecules are DNA and the proteins. And these molecules harbor information in their very structure. That in and of itself suggests the work of a mind, but the argument is much deeper than that. For example, information theorists who study molecular biology have come to recognize that the way in which biochemical systems are organized in terms of their information content is identical to the way that we would organize language. That biochemical information is organized in the form of a language, a biochemical language that is analogous to how we organize information in languages. So it's not the mere presence of information, it's how it's organized, it's how it's structured. It's structured and organized the same way that we do it.